Planet Jerv.
Here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to the Planet Jerf podcast. Oh wait, let me do that again. Greetings, Jerflings. Welcome to Planet Jerf, episode 2. I am recording the podcast in a different environment today. I'm recording it in the day, so this will be a audio-only version of the podcast. I'll post it up on YouTube with a picture of myself or something like that, and then it will be on whatever podcast app you use to listen to podcasts. I feel like I've said the word podcast a lot at the beginning of the podcast. I should explain myself. This week we've been watching a lot of murder mysteries. I've been watching a lot of murder mysteries with my wife. And it's spooky in the basement, and so usually I go downstairs to record the pod, but it's too spooky late at night, and I don't want to go down there. So instead, I'm doing this in the middle of the day while my wife is working away on her on a project on her blog. Even though every time I look at her computer, it looks like her search history is things like how to dispose of a body. Or it's very specific search history as to how to get rid of a body, how to melt a brown man height 5'11" in a vat of acid. And then when she gives me the grocery list, it's like bananas and Baby Bell cheese, and then 40 liters of acid, and then the last thing is a barrel that you can fit in. So I'm recording the podcast upstairs today while she's plugging away at things. We've been watching the Murdog, the Murdog mysteries, which is not the CBC show, but the rich people in South Carolina who they've released a second season of the whole thing, which doesn't make sense to me because everyone in the family is either dead or in jail. So I don't know where they're getting more of a story, but we started watching that, and it's pretty grim, so it was spooking me out to go downstairs, not thinking that Alex Murdaugh was going to come and murder me, but maybe something I said controversial, maybe the Bourbon Street Grill staff that I insulted in the first episode of the podcast are out for revenge, and they'll come and murder me, so I wanted to record this upstairs. The Slurpee choice this week, I got a mug root beer mixed with a Dr. Pepper, mixed with a Coca-Cola. So 3 different browns. We're going to call that the Northeast Calgary. Three different versions of brown and 1 Slurpee. So if you want to check that out, take a photo of yourself or even an audio recording of yourself slurping up a Northeast Calgary and post it to your social media. Tag at Jeff Da Silva. And if you do, there might be a prize involved. There might not be a prize, but there might be a prize. I went to Tim Hortons over lunch, and it said, "Hey, do you want to round up for Girl Guides?" I'm like, "Fuck that." I'm not interested in rounding up anything. I'd like you to round up that change and put it into my wallet so I can put it towards the next double that I get. I don't get all this rounding up thing. The other day I went to the Bottle Depot on a Friday night, and outside the Bottle Depot there was the Girl Guides. Again, the Girl Guides trying to round up money. and I went to the Bottle Depot, and I came out, and they're like, they already know that I'm coming out with change. Like, I don't know. They know that I'm going in there with a bag of cans and coming out with some sort of change. So they're like, "Do you have any change to give to Girl Guides?" And I'm like, I wouldn't be at the Bottle Depot on a Friday night if I had change to give to Girl Guides. I would be doing anything other than what I was doing here. So I had to turn them down. Like, don't you guys make like dream catchers out of twigs and berries? Isn't that the extent of your craft? Making like things that your parents put on the fridge out of garbage that you found in the ditches. So I'm not a big yikes for me from the Girl Guides in terms of what they're offering. I don't know. It's been a pretty interesting week. We're watching the Murdaugh murder documentary. It's really grim, and they're describing in the second series. They're describing their crime scene, and we're watching the show, and they just have blurred out, like censored, like when you see boobies on a TV show, they've just censored out the bodies, and no disrespect or whatever, but Jackie, who's sitting near me, was kind of getting freaked out by it, so I told her, like, don't look, and so they're showing the bodies and stuff, but then they're also showing the final texts that the murder victims received, and they still made the choice to use the standard boop, boop, the standard text sound effect that comes up on like Emily in Paris or whatever it is. So they have the murderer describing the murder scene, and it's super, super dark and grim, and then all of a sudden you'll just hear a boop, boop, and I couldn't stop thinking about what it would be like if I was murdered and they were doing a documentary on me, and all of a sudden that text sound would pop up and it would be like boop, and it would just be my friend Ryan showing a picture of his wiener in a donut or whatever was the final text I get, and that's on 48 hours. That would be a pretty sad situation. So that was something I watched this week. I'm thinking about this recording of this podcast, and meanwhile, Jackie is washing her hands, which at least you know that when you come to our house, you're not going to get any, certainly not from her, you're not going to get any hair in your food, but if I've prepared the dishes, then be sure, know that it comes with a little bit of floss, I guess. Yeah, no, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. We were watching the news last night, and when I came home, Jackie was like, you got to see this news story, and you should talk about it on the podcast. So we rewound what the news story was, and apparently a ride at Canada's Wonderland got stuck upside down for 41 minutes. and half an hour. And so they were interviewing a couple kids who were on the ride, and they said it was really terrifying. Like the shoulder pads started to buckle, and they interviewed a kid named, I think his name was like Chase Walker, which is the whitest name for a child imaginable, who's going to Canada's Wonderland on a Sunday night. Chase Walker was stuck upside down for 31 minutes. And then they said that when the ride started moving again, they thought, oh, finally we're safe. But they had to let the ride finish its entire track. So everyone stuck on the ride still had to go for the rest of the ride, which, in all fairness to Canada's Wonderland, you have to complete the ride. You don't, even if there's a malfunction, people still want to have the fun part of the ride. So yeah, that was an interesting thing. I don't know what my take is other than it would suck to be those guys. Sucks to be them. That's why I don't do anything dangerous. in the background, if you didn't hear, my dear wife Jackie is just hammering a toad to death on our kitchen island with a mallet. She's making frog leg stew later on. So if you're wondering what all the hubbub is about in the De Silva household, she's just smashing with Thor's hammer on the kitchen island. There was nothing else interesting in the other interesting thing in the news is that Justin Trudeau apparently everyone is thinking that maybe we'll go to war with India, and in that case I'm gonna have to choose a side, I guess. Do I side with my original homies, like the old school uncles, or do I side with the country that I was born and raised in? And I think because I'm a coward, I'll probably just stand in the middle and just see who's winning, and then just opt to join whatever side they're on. My assumption is that India would destroy us. Unfortunately, they would just have to recall all of the skip the dishes drivers, and all of the people in this country would starve to death. That we would have no chance. We'd have no transportation. We would have no way to eat. All the Tim Hortons would be shut down. Everyone would be sleepy on the Canadian side because they brought back all the Browns back to India, and they wouldn't even have to fight us. They would just we would just die because we wouldn't have any services whatsoever. So I guess Team India, I guess. Sorry, taking a Slurpee break. Other thing in the podcast, or other stuff going on. I've been playing Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PS5, and it's so realistic that one of the missions I got to was just to prepare Christmas dinner. You didn't even have to play as Spider-Man. You just had to go into your living room and put a record on and set the Christmas tree lights up and stuff like that. And I don't know, it was pretty. The games are getting too realistic. Where one of the missions for Miles Morales is just to be like, lie down in your bed and feel sad about everything, or like go try and do a side hustle. Miles Morales has all these side hustles, like he's selling vintage clothing on Poshmark, and trying to earn extra bucks any way he can. So that was another thing that I got up to this week. What else? Having a hit of that slurp. Now you might think that's crinkling in the background. But my wife is cutting the cheese. She's literally cutting the cheese, but literally cutting a piece of cheese. She's not tooting around or anything like that. I turned over and I turned to the side, and she's cutting a block of cheese. And she's using the sharpest knife. So certainly the prediction in the beginning about murdering me is slowly coming to fruition. I don't know if a court of law would qualify forcing your wife to listen to you podcast as emotional abuse, but certainly they would probably qualify forcing her to watch your stand-up clips as some sort of emotional abuse. I think that's what the dad in the Turlock Horror House was doing to the children, was forcing them to watch all of his crowd work stand-up comedy clips. All of the kids in the basement chained up listening to him make witty quips about where people work. We grew our own pumpkins. We grew our own pumpkins this year, which was super. We grew our own pumpkins this year, which in the beginning of the year sounded like an awesome idea. We went to the garden center, and I saw this packet of seeds, and it said Monster Pumpkins. It showed a pumpkin the size of like two toddlers stacked together on the cover of it. So we bought these seeds, and we planted them in our backyard. And all summer long, we took turns watering them, and they started to sprout. They grew beyond our imagination. But I thought, like, how much further could we take this? Because on the package, it shows a giant pumpkin, too big to imagine. And so I let it go on too long. I let the sprouts kind of take over our yard and all of that stuff. And the pumpkin, just at a certain point, stopped growing. But it did start to become infested with maggots, which we now have this maggot-infested pumpkin sitting on our table. And so it didn't grow that big. So a big yikes to Golden Acres Garden Center for displaying a pumpkin seed package that showed a monster pumpkin. This pumpkin is hardly monstrous. It looks like piece of garbage. The stem is it's not even an orange color. It looks like a pea yellow pumpkin, and the stem is hollow, which it's great for the bugs that live inside it, but it's not good for it's not good for a jack-o'-lantern or anything like that. So that was kind of a shitty deal. So we have all these kind of ornate other pumpkins that we got from the farmer's market. That was the other thing that happened this week, is that we went to the Millerville Farmer Market, which when I entered that market, the entire migrant population, the entire visible minority population of that market increases by 1,000%, because I don't think there's ever been one brown guy who's ventured that far out to that market. So we showed up to the market. We bought some ornate pumpkins, and we went to see Mr. Hebert, who's our savory dealer. He's like a drug dealer from the Mennonites or the Hutterites, and he makes the most wonderful savory. And so we got this savory, and we bought a bunch of it in anticipation for Thanksgiving dinner. And we thought maybe we would get a picture with Mr. Hebert, but then I was too scared to ask him for a picture. But he's our biggest celebrity in Calgary. If you look up on Wikipedia, it says like Alicia Cuthbert, and then our good friend Andrew Fung, and then at number one is Mr. Hebert, the Mennonite farmer at Millerville Market, who has the best savory in town. So I wasn't brave enough to take a picture get a picture with Mr. Hebert, but I took a mental image, and it will live with me for the rest of my life. Other things going on. I thought it was cold outside. I thought it was really foggy. I got texts from all my friends on Sunday morning, and all of the texts said, "Spooky outside, ain't it?" and it looked like a nice fall day, but when I got outside, it turned out to be smoke. It turned out to be just a heavy smoke from some sort of wildfire, so I was just coughing about. I don't know what else. Oh, I saw a video this morning, and it said it was a secret leaked video from a cloning factory in Canada, and it had all these like basically like they looked like dead dudes kind of strung out in a factory, and the guy who posted it was like, "Look at what Justin Trudeau is doing. He's making clones." And I was like, I don't know why he would be making a factory of clones. They didn't even look like him. They looked like an out of shape version of like George Stroumboulopoulos, which is another. It looked like a whole factory of George Stroumboulopoulos. I suspect that it's just a Spirit Halloween dummy factory, and that's what's kind of going on, is that they're just making lots of dummies, and so other than that, I don't know. Oh, I went to Spirit Halloween. My trusted co-host here is helping me. She now has another knife. We have all sorts of knives in our house. She now has a wooden knife, which obviously, if she murdered me with the wooden knives that they hand out, it would be a long, torturous death, because it would take forever to break skin. She would just have to saw at me for hours on end until I perish, just from fear, I guess. We went to Spirit Halloween, and we went there, and it's my favorite store to go into, but it's a little bit awkward because last year I was wanting to scrounge up some extra dollars for before we went to Disney World. And so I had applied to multiple businesses, and the only place that would take me with my honor roll smarts and my master's in business is Spirit Halloween. And so I had last summer, not a lot of people know this, but I worked at the Spirit Halloween. And it was a wonderful experience. I got to know the whole staff, maybe a little too well, I guess, because now every time I go into my favorite store, I see Brandon, the dude who runs Spirit Halloween, and we just kind of smile and nod at each other, and I say, "Hey, any cool stuff this year?" And he says, "Yeah, there's some good stuff coming in." He's not a big conversationalist. But now we went into Spirit Halloween, and I kind of asked. I was still kind of inquiring, hey, maybe I could pick up a shift or whatever, and they didn't want me back. They did not want me back at that establishment. He said you could. He said you should check out the Airdrie location, not to work at, but to see some of the cool stuff at that location. So I will make a note to do that. So a big likes to Spirit Halloween, my favorite establishment. It sucked. One of the craziest things about Spirit Halloween is that when I was working there, they didn't have enough work for me. And so I went in there, and one time I showed up and Brandon was dressed like in a costume, and he's like, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" And then I went behind the kind of curtains, and I don't know if you've ever been fired by anyone who's dressed up like Freddy Krueger before, but it's a real nightmare. It kind of sucked. I wasn't fired. I was let go. Okay, I'm not gonna put on my resume that I was fired from Spirit Halloween. I was let go because they didn't have enough work to give me. They didn't have enough Skelebaner costumes for me to put up on the shelf. The other crazy thing about Spirit Halloween is that, one, it was kind of like a utopia in a way, because we had all these different people from different walks of life coming together, different cultures, different people across the political spectrum. There was people putting "Fuck Trudeau" stickers all over the back, and there was also people who were just fresh into Canada, all working together to make the Spirit Halloween store function. And so that was kind of cool in a way. But the one thing I remember is that one time they assigned me to put up all of the sexy pirate costumes in the one section. And the big boss, Brandon's boss, Usman, came around and he walked up to me and he's like, "Hey man, you like what you're putting up, man?" And I was like, "Yeah, they're costumes." He's like, "Yeah, don't get carried away." As if I was going to jerk off in the spirit of Halloween to these sexy pirate costumes. I don't know what he was implying by "don't get too carried away," but they must have had some sort of incident at some point. So they had to put that warning on there.
We should talk about the kid that jumped into the pool.
The other thing that's really interesting is that we went to Bass Pro, another favorite hotspot of mine. Who knows? Maybe I'll get a side hustle at Bass Pro. It's like a white nationalist theme park run entirely by immigrants. Like all of the staff at the Bass Pro Cross Iron Mills are people of color, but all of the patrons are not. So we went to the Bass Pro, and maybe a month ago, someone had shared a video to me showing a dude at the Bass Pro. He climbed up to above the Bass Pro aquarium, and then he stood there, and then he made the sign of the cross because God's up there watching this go down, and God's gonna protect this idiot from whatever he did. And then he hopped into the aquarium at the Bass Pro, and then the video cuts out. And so when we went to the Bass Pro this weekend, there's netting all around, but the netting is just loosely there. So if you still wanted to pull the same dumb stunt, you could do it. Obviously, I'm not advocating anyone to do that, because this guy could have killed a bunch of fishes, and they wouldn't get to live their lives out in some retail store being stared at by dudes buying ammo for their hunting trips or whatever it is. They would have passed away. So obviously don't jump into the big yikes for jumping into the aquarium at the Bass Pro. Not a good idea. And who knows what happened to that guy. The video cuts out. We don't know if he died. We don't know if they left him there for fish food. Who knows? Maybe that's what they put in the toffee. All the Bass Pro toffee, everything there has the scent of deer meat. Every item there has the scent of some sort of gamey venison or something like that. And so, obviously, like, if you eat the popcorn there, it probably has a squirt of Gary's skin or whoever jumped in there. Seasoned with Bill or whatever. 27-minute podcast. I think we need to go another 10 minutes at least. I'm trying to think what else happened this week. Oh, we had our parent-teacher interviews this week, and that is always fun because it feels like Jackie and myself are still little students walking into the school. Like, I show up in like Nike Dunks and a hoodie, and I think that the principal is going to be taking me into her office and scolding me for being late or whatever. So we show up to parent-teacher interviews, and the whole week I was a little bit nervous about parent-teacher interviews because earlier in the week our 7-year-old Story had come back home from school, and she went straight up to her room, and she was a little bit upset, and I said, "Hey, how was school?" And she said, Don't say it." She's Adam Sandler. Don't do it. She does a perfect Adam Sandler impression. She said, "Just go ask mommy." So I went down and I asked Jackie. I said, "What happened to Story this week?" And she said that apparently Story was arm wrestling one of the boys in her class, and she was too strong. And she basically, as I understood it, threw one of the boys across the classroom, and then her teacher got mad at her for doing that. And so I went back up to Story and I said, Story, is this true? Like, you were arm wrestling one of the boys? And she said, Daddy, I just was too strong, but I have these little bitty arms. And I said, oh, well, you probably didn't do anything with these little bitty arms. So the whole week I was scared that the teacher was going to bring up this whole arm wrestling incident, even to the point where I was nervous that when I shook her hand when I met her, that I would have too firm of a handshake, and she would think, wow, is this family an arm wrestling family? Like, is this the family business that they're too strong even though they have little bitty arms? And luckily, she didn't shake either of our hands. She just walked in, and us, like two little children, sat down like we were called into the office, and then we listened to her talk about what a great learning environment our kids are in. And then it was a clean school. One thing I've noticed about this school is that there's no doors. There's a door on the bathroom stall, but then there's no door to a bathroom, which I think is there to prevent bullying and all this other stuff. But all I can think of is that if I had to go drop a deuce or whatever in school, and you're walking in there, like you're walking into that stall and everyone sees you walking into that stall, there's no hiding what's going on. I wouldn't be taking a dump in that school, because everyone in school would know, oh, there's Jeffrey, the guy with the diarrhea. The guy with the really bad diarrhea has just gone out there and then he's popped out. You need poo privacy is what you need at the schools. So at the very least, the kids should be given some sort of mask or something like that, like when they leave the classroom, so that no one can identify them if they do. So a big yikes to the school system right now. They might be doing okay with teaching and all of that stuff, but this whole thing where kids have to shit out in the open is not good for the kids' self-esteem. And really, it's going to lead to more bullying. I think there's certainly going to be a lot of active shitter situations. We'll have to edit that out, but I don't know how to do that. So, other than that, it's been a pretty good week. I hope you've had a good week. The lesson that I want everyone to take with them, the moral of this episode of the Planet Jerf podcast is that poo privacy is a really important thing. And obviously people don't want other people knowing their business. We all shit, but we don't want everyone knowing what's happening. So if you can write into the school boards across Calgary and say that we need to start putting up some sort of dividers or some sort of thing where kids are able to shit freely, that would be great. So thank you very much for tuning into the Planet Jerf podcast. Follow me at Jeff De Silva on Instagram and on Twitter, which is slowly but surely crumbling. And then subscribe, like the podcast, and advocate for poo privacy. Thank you.